Sometimes friendship finds you when you least expect it. Here's a story that's hard to put down. Once upon a time in a big city full of lost souls, there lived a man who went by the name Mac. He wasn't called Mac because he was a tough guy, but because he always started his days by saying, "Maiden voyage." That's what he'd tell himself each morning as he stepped into the city, as if every day was a new adventure, as if the garbage cans hadn't become his bed for the 5th week in a row. Mac was one of those guys who always smelled like rain, even when the sun was having a staring contest with the sky. And his hair always looked like he'd just walked through a storm, even when he was sheltering under the same bridge for months. Now, most folks would look at a guy like Mac and think he was born unlucky, but that's not entirely true. The truth is, Mac had once been lucky enough to have everything, but he'd traded it all away, one mistake at a time, until all that was left was the hope that comes in the morning. And let me tell you, that hope could be stubborn as hell. Now, the story takes a turn. Enter a 4-legged character who changes everything. Mac meets a dog, and this isn't just any dog. This dog carries a story in his eyes and a heart in his paws. But here's the kicker. The dog seems to know Mac better than Mac knows himself. And you're probably wondering, how does a dog know a guy's story? Well, that's what makes this dog special. He doesn't just bark and wag tails. He reads hearts, understands feelings, and can sniff out a soul in need of a friend. And this dog, let me tell you, had a talent for finding those souls. The day Mac met this dog, it was like the universe decided to rewrite his story. See, Mac had this habit of saving everything he heard and trying to fix everyone's problems. It's what he did. Back when he had a roof over his head and a smile on his face, he'd listen to people's worries, offer a joke, and somehow make their troubles feel smaller. But now, out on the streets, all he had was his ears and his heart. So he kept collecting stories like coins and bottled feelings like whiskey. Trouble was, he had no idea what to do with them. That's why when he met the dog, it was like looking in a mirror. The dog, it turned out, was good at 2 things: giving unconditional love and knowing when someone needed more than a pat on the back. Mac was drawn to this dog because, well, he understood Mac in a way nobody else could. The dog saw the pain hidden under Mac's jokes and knew he needed a friend more than a handout. And right then and there, in the middle of that busy city, Mac made a decision. He decided to open up again, to let someone in after all these years. And wouldn't you know it, that someone was a scruffy dog who probably had more heart than most humans. Now I could tell you the dog saved Mac, but that wouldn't be entirely true. Yeah, the dog gave him company and a reason to get up in the morning, but Mac, well, he taught the dog what it meant to be human, to understand feelings, and to know that a kind word was the best treat. Together, they formed a bond that could melt your heart. Even in the toughest times, Mac started seeing the world differently. He began to notice the beauty in the small things, like the way the sunlight fell on an old building or how a stranger smiled at a child. He started to remember why he loved the rain. It wasn't just about getting wet. It was about the feeling of new beginnings. He started to believe in hope again, because hope, he realized, wasn't a place you reached. It was a journey you took, and he had a furry little compass to guide him. Every morning when the city woke up and the sun painted the sky with possibilities, Mac would say, "Maiden voyage," and set off with his dog by his side. And everywhere they went, they spread a little kindness. They became known as the 2 hearts under the bridge. People started to seek them out, not just for help, but for a listening ear and a shared smile. Mac's heart, once hardened by the streets, began to heal. He started fixing things again, not houses or cars, but people's feelings. He became the kind of friend you rarely find, someone who listens without judging, who offers help without expecting anything in return. One day, a young woman named Ella came to the bridge. She was struggling, not because of something that had happened to her, but because of something she had done. She had made a terrible mistake and was carrying the weight of it, not just in her heart, but in her eyes. When Max saw her, he knew she needed more than advice. She needed someone who understood what it meant to carry a heavy heart. And who better to understand that than a man and a dog who had been living under a bridge? Mac listened to her story, and when she finished, he didn't lecture her or tell her.